Duke Lucian Ashford had everything society demanded: wealth, power, a title older than empires themselves. But on his wedding night, standing before a woman he'd never truly known, he faced something no amount of gold could purchase: her truth.
Arabella, may I kiss you?
Not until you tell me do you even see me. The real me, not the bride you were given.
I see you, Arabella.
He expected obedience. She offered something far more dangerous: authenticity.
Then let me know you. All of you.
Knowing someone and possessing them are not the same, Your Grace. I wonder which were you truly seeking?
In that moment, the Duke discovered his greatest conquest could never be claimed, only chosen. The morning after their wedding, Lucian found Arabella standing alone in the garden, her hand pressed against the cold stone of the ancient fountain. He had spent the entire night in his study, wrestling with her words. She had not come to him seeking comfort or passion. She had come seeking truth. And he had no idea how to give her something he himself had never possessed. Before Arabella became the Duchess of Ashford, she lived as a governess in her uncle's household, invisible and forgotten. She had watched from the shadows as her cousins were paraded before eligible men, draped in silk and pearls, their futures decided like transactions at market. No one had ever asked what Arabella wanted. No one had ever looked long enough to see her. When the Duke's proposal came through her uncle, it felt like rescue and imprisonment wrapped into one breath. She would escape poverty, yes, but at what cost to her soul?
You did not sleep.
Sleep requires peace, Your Grace. I find I possess neither.
My name is Lucian. I think you have earned the right to use it.
A name is easy to forgive, it is understanding that costs something.
Lucian Ashford had inherited more than a title. He had inherited his father's legacy of emotional distance, wrapped in velvet and tradition. The old Duke had taught him that feelings were weaknesses, that vulnerability was a currency only the poor could afford. Love was a construct for novels and the lower classes. Duty was everything. But standing in that garden, with this woman who saw through him like glass, Lucian began to understand that duty without connection was just a beautiful prison, and he had been the warden all along.
I read the books in your room. Poetry, philosophy. You have been thinking about all of this long before I found you.
Thinking changes nothing when you have no choices.
I could think myself brilliant, Your Grace, and still be no more than a possession you purchased with your family name.
You tell me, did you not purchase me? My uncle received a substantial sum, my cousins received new wardrobes because you deemed me worthy of elevation.
The words struck him because they were true. He had done exactly that. He had sent money before he had sent courtship. He had acquired her, the way he acquired everything else, with wealth and expectation.
What if I told you that I was as trapped as you were?
That my father arranged the...
Died, that I had been carrying his wishes like a stone in my chest for 2 years.
Then we would both be prisoners, but only one of us would have the key.
That was when Lucian understood something that shifted everything. She was not asking him to be perfect. She was asking him to be real. And real meant admitting that he too had been lonely, that he too had been questioning whether the life he had been given was actually the life he wanted to live. Real meant tearing down the walls that his entire family had built, brick by brick, for generations.
I do not know how to be what you need. I was raised to be the Duke, to be strong, to rule the Victorian fort.
Then we will build one together. Or we will both drown. But at least we will know the truth of it.
Outside the walls of Ashford Manor, the world continued on, unaware that something dangerous was beginning to shift. Within those walls, in a garden where flowers bloomed in defiance of autumn, a duke and his bride were doing something far more radical than obeying the rules that governed their world. They were choosing each other, not because duty demanded it, not because society required it, but because something deeper, something neither of them could name, was calling them toward honesty. And honesty, they would soon discover, was far more powerful than any title, far more dangerous than any secret, and far more capable of saving them than either of them could possibly imagine.
I have arrived to correct this grave mistake. A duchess' duty demands it.
The peace they had found in that garden lasted exactly 3 days. On the 4th morning, Lucien's mother arrived at Ashford Manor, sweeping through the doors like a storm made flesh, her black mourning silks trailing behind her like the wake of a ship. She had not come to celebrate her son's marriage. She had come because word had reached her ears that her son was making a grave mistake, and a duchess's duty demanded she correct it immediately. What began in the garden as a fragile understanding quickly became something that frightened everyone around them. The servants whispered about how the Duke smiled now, how he took meals with his bride instead of in solitary splendor. Some praised it, others saw it as weakness, and none saw it more clearly than his mother, the Dowager Duchess Margot, a woman who had spent 30 years teaching her son that love was a luxury for people without responsibility. She had built her entire life on the principle that feeling nothing was the path to power, and now her son was threatening to dismantle everything she had constructed.
My mother is here. She sent word from the road that she would not be denied entry.
And this disturbs you because...
Because she will try to undo everything. Because she believes the Duke's heart should remain locked away, whether you are prepared or not.
A duchess does not hide from her family.
She is not like other women, Arabella. She is brilliant and cruel in equal measure. She will find your weaknesses and explain hesitation.
Does she know that you are not the stone statue everyone believes you to be?
Promise me you will not let her convince you that what we have is foolish. Promise me you will not disappear the way I nearly did.
I promise you nothing but honesty. If I find myself doubting, I will tell you. If I find myself afraid, I will tell you. But I will not pretend to be something I am not, simply to ease your mother's mind.
That promise was more dangerous than any love declaration, because it meant she would not retreat into safety. It meant she would stand in the storm with him, even if the storm was his own blood. Lucien understood then that he had fallen in love not with a woman who would make his life easier, but with a woman who would make it true. And the cost of truth, he was beginning to realize, was far higher than the cost of lies.
So you are the governess who seduced my son into abandoning his duty.
I am the Duchess of Ashford, and I abandoned nothing, nor did your son seduce anything from me that I did not freely give.
A governess with spirit. How delightful. Tell me, child, do you understand what you have done? My son had built a reputation of impeccable control. Perhaps they should. Your son's judgment led him to believe that a heart was a weakness. I am grateful to have proven him wrong.
You think yourself clever, but you are merely naive. I had hopes for better sense from you, at least. My son is already receiving letters from London. His friends question his stability. His peers question his commitment and are distracted by passion. It destroys everything.
It destroys only what deserves to be destroyed. Exactly his essence is it is more helping his like which one drawn. Nearly before it. If his
Margot rose from her chair then, and Arabella saw where Lucien had inherited his capacity for stillness. The Dowager Duchess moved with the precision of someone who had spent a lifetime controlling every gesture, every breath. She approached Arabella slowly, circling her like a predator deciding whether to strike.
My husband built an empire through discipline and sacrifice. He taught my son that a man's feelings are irrelevant, that his duty is everything, and now you have infected him with the notion that his happiness matters.
His happiness has always mattered. He was simply too well trained to admit it.
Happiness is a luxury, and luxury destroys legacy. Then perhaps it is time for the Ashford name to mean something different. Perhaps it could mean a legacy of men who loved their wives, of dukes who were also human. Imagine how revolutionary that would be. You are brave, I will give you that. But bravery without wisdom is simply self-destruction, and I will not allow my son to be destroyed by a governess with delusions of nobility.
Lucien found them standing face to face in the drawing room, and he knew immediately that his mother had drawn her line in the sand. She would not accept Arabella. She would not accept his choice. She would use every weapon in her considerable arsenal to drive a wedge between them, and she would do it, believing she was protecting him. The terrible truth was that his mother loved him. The even more terrible truth was that her love had been trained to express itself only through control.
Mother, you will treat my wife with respect, or you will leave this house. Those are your only choices.
And choose yourself over your family, over your now.
Yes. If that is what it takes to become the man I actually want to be instead of the man you want to be, then yes. 1,000 times, yes.
You will regret this when she leaves you. When reality crashes through your fantasy, you will remember my warnings.
The only thing I regret is allowing you to make me afraid of feeling for this long.
Margot left Ashford Manor that evening, her carriage departing in a cloud of dust and dignity. But she did not leave without consequences. She left behind letters to her son's business partners, subtle questions about his judgment. She left behind gossip seeded through London's drawing rooms, that the Duke had married beneath him, that passion had clouded his reason, that the Ashford legacy might be at risk. And most dangerously of all, she left behind doubt, not in Arabella, who had proven herself unshakable, but in Lucien, who had spent his entire life being shaped by his mother's fears. What if she was right? What if love truly was a liability? What if choosing his heart meant losing everything else?
Come to bed. Whatever this is, it will still be here in the morning.
My mother was right about one thing. I have been distracted. The ledgers show it.
So change it. Work during the day and love me at night. Why must you choose between them?
Because men like me do not get to have both. Because power requires sacrifice, and the first thing you must sacrifice is your heart.
Then I refuse to let you become that man. I refuse to be the cost of your legacy.
What if choosing you means losing everything else?
Then you will have gained something far more valuable. But I do not believe that is true. I believe you can be a good duke and a good husband. I believe you can have both, and I am willing to prove it to you if you will let me.
In that moment, Lucien stood at a crossroads. Behind him lay the safety of emotional distance, the proven path of his father and his father before him. Ahead of him lay uncertainty and risk, and the radical possibility that a life built on love might actually be stronger than one built on fear. He looked at his wife, at this woman who had come into his life as a stranger, and was asking him to trust her with his entire self, and he made a choice that would echo through the rest of his days. 2 weeks passed in a strange suspension of peace. Lucien threw himself into his work with renewed purpose, determined to prove to everyone, especially himself, that love and duty could coexist. Arabella settled into her role as Duchess with a quiet grace that won over even the most skeptical servants. But beneath the surface, something was moving in the shadows. A letter arrived, addressed to Arabella, in handwriting she did not recognize. And when she opened it, the world shifted beneath her feet. Every family carries secrets, buried deep beneath respectability and reputation. Some secrets are small, the kind that fade with time and memory. Others are enormous, heavy things that poison everything they touch, waiting in darkness for the moment when silence becomes impossible. Arabella's father had died when she was young, his reputation destroyed, his money vanished like morning mist. She had never questioned the story her uncle told her. She had never needed to. But the letter in her trembling hands suggested that the story she had been told was not the entire truth.
Who is LM?
What? Arabella, what is it?
Where did you get that reference? Answer my question. Who is LM?
Give me the letter.
You will tell me who she is, and you will tell me why she knows about something that concerns my family, something you have clearly been hiding.
LM is my mother.
Arabella understood then. The letter had come from the Dowager Duchess. The woman who had sworn she would destroy their marriage had sent a final knife, twisted precisely where it would cause the most damage. This was not coincidence. This was calculated revenge.
What did your father do? What does that letter contain that makes you look as though I have just sentenced you to death?
My father entered into a business partnership with your father. They were going to build something to prize that would have scumped the Hoshlark and everything for both families. But my father discovered that your father had made promises he could not keep, and your father lost everything when the venture collapsed. The money he left into him, I did not know the full extent of him after my father died, so by then it was too late to fix anything.
You knew this when you married me?
No. I swear to you, I did not know who you were. Not until after our wedding, when I began investigating your background. And by then I was already falling in love with you, and I could not find the courage to tell you.
You could not find the courage? Lucien, you have had weeks to tell me this truth. Weeks when you held me and whispered promises about honesty and building something real, all lies. All of it built on a foundation of deception.
It was not a lie. Everything I felt for you has been real. But I was afraid that if you knew, you would believe I had married you out of guilt, that everything between us would be contaminated by that history.
Arabella left the library without another word. She walked through the halls of Ashford Manor like a ghost, moving past servants who lowered their eyes respectfully, climbing the stairs to the rooms that had become her refuge. Behind her, Lucian stood alone among the books, understanding that in his attempt to protect her from pain, he had created something far worse. He had made himself into the kind of man his mother had tried to make him, a man who kept secrets, a man who chose protection over truth. Arabella did not come to dinner. She did not come to their shared chambers that night. She sat in the small sitting room, attached to her bedroom, staring at the letter, trying to make sense of a life that suddenly felt like it had been constructed entirely on lies. Her father had not simply failed, he had been betrayed, and she had married the son of the man who betrayed him. When Lucian finally found her near midnight, she did not look up.
Talk to me. Please, tell me what you are feeling.
I am feeling the weight of a daughter's debt to a father I never knew. I am feeling the shame of choices I made in ignorance. I am feeling betrayed by the one person who swore to show me nothing but truth.
I know all of that, and I deserve it, but Arabella, I need you to understand something.
And what will you do? Will you dissolve your shipping interests? Will you give back the fortune your father built on my family's ruin?
If that is what you need from me, then yes, I will. I will give you everything I have. I will burn it all down if that is what it takes.
I do not want your money, Lucian. I never wanted your money. What I wanted was a husband who would not lie to me. What I wanted was to build something with someone who would not hide pieces of himself in darkness.
Then let me show you the truth now. Let me tell you everything. And what good will that do?
The truth cannot undo what your father did. It cannot give me back the years my father spent broken by that betrayal.
In that moment, Lucian understood the full weight of what it meant to love someone. It was not the joy of passion or the comfort of connection. It was the vulnerability of standing before another person and knowing that your love was not enough to fix their pain. It was accepting that sometimes love could only bear witness to suffering, could only stand beside someone in the darkness and refuse to let them face it alone. Arabella left Ashford Manor 3 days later. She did not leave a note. She did not say goodbye. She simply gathered what few belongings were truly hers and departed in the early morning when the house was still wrapped in darkness. Lucian woke to find her gone, the bed beside him cold, and he understood that this was what his father must have felt when everything fell away. This was the price of secrets. By the time Arabella reached London, the Dowager Duchess's gossip had already begun its work. Whispers moved through drawing rooms and gentlemen's clubs, carefully worded insinuations that the Duke's marriage was a disaster, that his bride had fled his bed and his home, that the Ashford name was being dragged through scandal by a man who had lost control of himself and his household. The Dowager Duchess had kept her word. She was destroying them both, slowly and methodically, with the precision of someone who had perfected the art of wielding reputation like a blade. Lucian stood in the empty bedroom, her scent still lingering on the pillows, and for the first time since childhood he wept. Not the controlled tears of a man managing his emotions, but the racking sobs of someone whose carefully constructed world had shattered completely. He had gained everything he thought he wanted: love, connection, authenticity, only to lose it all in the moment of truth. By afternoon, the first letter arrived from his solicitor. His business partners were questioning his stability. Several had requested meetings to discuss the future of their ventures. One had already begun to distance himself from Ashford interests. The machinery of reputation was grinding forward, and Lucian was helpless to stop it. Lucian sat at his desk, reading letter after letter, watching his empire crumble not from financial failure, but from the poison of whispered doubt. He wanted to write to Arabella, to beg her to return, to promise anything if she would just come back. But he had lost that right when he chose silence over truth. Arabella had taken rooms in a modest boarding house in Bloomsbury, far from the glittering world of aristocratic London. She moved through her days like someone walking underwater, each moment heavy and slow. She had left her husband. She had abandoned her position as Duchess. She had chosen the truth even though the truth had destroyed everything. But the world did not allow women such choices to pass quietly. Letters began arriving, some from sympathetic acquaintances, some from cruel strangers. The scandal had already taken flight. The governess bride who had seduced the Duke only to abandon him. The woman who had brought disgrace to the Ashford name. There was no version of the story in which she was anything but guilty. A knock came at her door one evening. It was her uncle, his face twisted with fury.
Do you understand what you have done? You were supposed to secure our family's position, and instead you have made us a laughingstock. The Duke has not contacted me. His mother sends letters questioning whether our family carries some genetic defect that makes us unsuitable for proper society.
Uncle, I did not mean for any of this to happen. I left because he lied to me. Because his what?
So you could end up here, in these squalid rooms, your name in tatters? You were a duchess, Arabella. You had everything.
I had nothing. I had everything except the one thing that mattered.
Arabella sat alone after her uncle left, understanding that there was no version of her choice that the world would accept. She had chosen love, and it had betrayed her. She had chosen truth, and it had destroyed her. She had chosen herself, and she had lost everything. This was the lowest moment, the place where it would have been easy to believe that she had made a terrible mistake, that she should have stayed, should have swallowed the pain, should have lived a beautiful lie. At Ashford Manor, Lucian made a decision that terrified him. He summoned his solicitor and began the process of restructuring his entire estate. He sold off holdings that his father had built their legacy on. He liquidated investments. He did not do it to win Arabella back, though some small part of him hoped it might. He did it because he finally understood that his father's way, building power on the foundation of other people's suffering, had never been strength at all. It had only ever been cowardice wearing a crown. His mother sent word that she was coming to the house. Lucian did not try to stop her. When she arrived, she found him in his study, surrounded by paperwork, his appearance disheveled, his manner defeated in a way that should have satisfied her.
I warned you this would happen. I told you that she would destroy everything.
No, Mother, you destroyed it. I merely allowed you to. I have spent my entire life following your blueprint for power, and it is a blueprint for emptiness. It creates nothing but isolation and regret.
You are throwing away 4 centuries of legacy.
Then let it go. If our legacy is built on the ruin of good people, then it deserves to fall.
And perhaps what I build in its place will mean something real. You would tear it all down.
To build something true.
Margot left Ashford Manor for the final time, her influence at its end. But Lucian's victory felt like defeat, because Arabella was still gone, and no restructuring of his estate could bring her back. He had learned the hardest lesson of all, that sometimes, even when you finally become the person you were meant to be, it is too late to save what you have broken. 1 month after Arabella left, Lucian received a package with no return address. Inside was a collection of documents, yellowed with age, bearing his father's signature. They detailed everything: the partnership with Arabella's father, the deliberate sabotage, the calculated cruelty designed to eliminate a rival. And with the documents came a letter in handwriting he recognized immediately as his mother's. She had kept the proof all these years, insurance against any challenge to her authority. Now she was giving it to him, a final gift wrapped in the certainty that he would never have the courage to use it. Lucian held the proof of his father's betrayal in his trembling hands and understood what his mother had known all along. The truth was a weapon far more powerful than silence. She had given it to him believing he would protect the family name by hiding it forever. She had not anticipated that her son might finally choose integrity over reputation, might finally understand that some stains cannot be hidden, only acknowledged and healed. Lucian went directly to the offices of the London Gazette. He walked in without appointment, without ceremony, and demanded to speak to the editor. When they met, he placed the documents on the desk and told the entire story. Not the sanitized version meant for drawing rooms, the complete truth. The editor, a man accustomed to scandal, but rarely to this kind of voluntary confession from nobility, began reading. As he turned each page, his expression shifted from skepticism to shock.
Your Grace, if you publish this, you understand what it means. Your family's reputation will be destroyed. Your business interests will suffer irreparably. I also understand that my wife left me because I chose silence over honesty. I will not make that mistake again.
The story broke 3 days later. Front page. Impossible to ignore. The Duke of Ashford had voluntarily revealed his father's betrayal of a business partner. The Ashford fortune, it was revealed, had been built partially on the deliberate ruin of a good man. Society fractured into 2 camps. those who called Lucian honorable for finally telling the truth, and those who called him a traitor to his class for exposing family secrets. Arabella was reading the newspaper in her modest boarding house when she saw the headline. She read it 3 times, unable to believe what Lucian had done. He had destroyed everything his father had built. He had made himself and his name a subject of ridicule and suspicion, and he had done it without asking her permission, without knowing if it would change anything between them. She did not think. She simply moved, gathering her shawl and stepping into the London streets. The carriage ride to Ashford Manor seemed to stretch into eternity. When she arrived, the servants seemed uncertain whether to admit her. She was no longer the Duchess. She was the woman who had abandoned her post. Lucian was in the garden, the same garden where they had first truly seen each other. He stood motionless when she appeared, as if he was afraid that moving, that even breathing, might shatter the moment.
You destroyed your legacy.
Yes.
You published our family's shame for all of London to read. Ought to.
Because I finally understood that shame shared is shame halved, and because I could not bear to be the kind of man who kept secrets from you, even if those secrets were not mine to keep.
My father died believing he was a failure, believing that he was weak. But he was not weak. He was betrayed.
I know, and I cannot change what my father did. But I can ensure that your father's name is restored. I can ensure that everyone knows the truth of what happened to him.
Arabella stood before the man she had married, the man she had left, the man who had finally become worthy of her love, not by being perfect, but by choosing truth over comfort, by choosing her over everything else he possessed.
Do you understand what you have done? Your mother will never forgive you. Society will whisper about you
for years.
I understand.
And I would do it again. I would do far worse than that, to have you look at me the way you are looking at me right now.
But she reached out and took his hand, and it was not the gesture of a bride or a duchess. It was the gesture of a woman who had fought her way through betrayal and doubt, and had chosen, once again, to believe in love.
I need you to hear this, Lucian. I need you to understand that I am not coming back because you destroyed your empire. I am coming back because you finally became the man I always believed you could be. A man who values truth more than power, a man who loves more than he fears.
Will you stay? Will you try again with me, knowing that everything has changed?
Everything has changed. And that is exactly why I am staying. Because now we can build something real. Something that is not built on secrets or shame or the weight of other people's expectations. We can build something that belongs only to us.
Then we shall build it together.
As the sun set over Ashford Manor, painting the sky in shades of amber and rose, Lucian and Arabella stood together in that garden where they had first truly seen each other. The path behind them was littered with pain and betrayal, and the hard-won wisdom that comes only from facing the darkest parts of ourselves and choosing, still, to love. The path ahead was uncertain, but it was theirs, built on the foundation of complete and honest truth. 6 months after Arabella returned to Ashford Manor, the gardens bloomed with a recklessness that seemed almost defiant. The servants had stopped whispering. The scandal in London had begun to fade, replaced by other dramas, other families crumbling under the weight of their own secrets. But within these walls, something extraordinary had taken root. A marriage, built not on duty or possession, but on the fragile, precious foundation of complete honesty. Lucian was no longer the man who believed that strength meant emotional distance. Arabella was no longer the woman who had resigned herself to invisibility. They had both been broken by the truth, and in being broken, they had learned how to be whole. The greatest transformation was not visible in ledgers or society pages. It lived in the quiet moments, in the way they looked at each other, in the certainty that they had chosen each other not because they had to, but because they wanted to. Lucian's solicitor arrived on a crisp autumn morning with documents that would reshape the Ashford holdings. Lucian had spent months restructuring his estate, not out of guilt, but out of genuine desire to build something different. He had established a fund in Arabella's father's name, dedicated to helping young merchants who had been similarly betrayed by more powerful men. He had opened the family's oldest business records to public examination. He had chosen transparency over privacy. When Arabella entered his study, she found him signing the final papers.
It is done. Everything that was built on your father's ruin has been dismantled and rebuilt into something that honors his memory.
You did not have to do this, Lucian. I forgave you months ago.
I had to make it right. This is not about forgiveness anymore. This is about ensuring that no one else's family.
Do you know what I love most about you now? It is not your wealth or your title. It is the fact that you chose to become someone better, even when becoming better cost you everything.
Lucian had begun his life believing that a man's worth was measured in what he possessed. Arabella had spent hers believing that a woman's worth was determined by what others allowed her to be. Together, they had discovered that worth cannot be measured or given or taken away. It simply exists, within each person, waiting to be recognized and claimed. Lucian had begun his life believing that a man's worth was measured in what he possessed. Arabella had spent hers believing that a woman's worth was determined by what others allowed her to be. Together, they had discovered that worth cannot be measured or given or taken away. It simply exists, within each person, waiting to be recognized and claimed.
My mother has accepted that she cannot change me.
And how does that make you feel?
Relieved, in a way, but also uncertain. Free, finally free from the weight of trying to become what she thought I should be.
Then perhaps someday you might find it in yourself to forgive her.
Perhaps. But that forgiveness will not come from duty. It will come from understanding.
That she did the best she could with the tools she had been given.
Forgiveness, they were learning, was not about absolving someone of wrongdoing. It was about releasing yourself from the burden of carrying their mistakes for them. It was about choosing to move forward, rather than remaining trapped in the past. Arabella stood in the garden on the anniversary of their wedding, wearing a simple dress of pale blue silk, her hair unadorned except for a single white rose. Lucian found her there at dawn, as he had found her so many times before, standing at the edge of something vast and uncertain.
1 year ago, you asked me if I truly saw you. Do you remember?
I remember. I was terrified that the answer would be no.
I did not see you then, not completely, but I have spent this entire year learning how to see you, to beauty, to the strength underneath, learning how to see past the kindness, to the fire that burns inside you. This is the key to my private study. Everything in it is yours now. Every ledger, every document, every secret I have kept. I want you to know that there are no more locked doors between us. There are no more hidden truths. What you see is what you get, completely and without reservation.
I do not need keys, Lucian.
I need only to know that you will always choose truth with me.
Arabella looked at the man before her and saw not the Duke she had married, but the man he had become, a man who had learned that true strength was not found in controlling others or controlling himself, but in the vulnerable act of opening himself completely to another person. A man who understood that legacy was not built in a single generation, but carried forward through the choices we make to be better than we were. As the sun rose over Ashford Manor, painting the world in shades of gold and amber, they stood together in that garden where their story had truly begun. Not where they had first met, but where they had first truly seen each other. And in that seeing, they had found the greatest treasure of all, not wealth or title or power, but the certainty of being known completely and loved without condition.